Welcome, everybody, to a brand new season of Revive Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Brandon. I got a special guest with me today, new doc, Dr. Jared. I'm super excited for you to hear his story and to meet him. We're going to talk all things chiropractic, the 5 essentials. And so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Share this with somebody who's close to you, far from health. Enjoy the episode. All right, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Super excited about this, Dr. Jared. Obviously, it's been a blessing to have you at the office. And today, really, what I want to do is just kind of hear your story, hear why chiropractic tugged on your heart. Not everybody just wakes up one day and is like, "Hey, let's be a chiropractor." I always joke around that you either have to have like a really crazy transformational story. Or you didn't get into dental school or something didn't work right. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, hey, chiropractic's like the top 10 ways to make money. So I'll just go be a chiropractor, which never really works out well. But I'm just super thankful for you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So I got into chiropractic from a friend of mine who referred me to check out chiropractic school. I was always super into health and wellness, and I wanted to be a PT originally. And so I shadowed some PTs, was like, this really isn't for me. And so he's like, hey, go check out chiropractic school. And so I started working for a chiropractor first, wanted to see it firsthand. And I was like, this is awesome. I got to see the results firsthand. And so I applied to chiropractic school, and now here I am. That's cool.
I know you had a really cool Dr. John,
Yep.
was a great influence, and I love Dr. John. He's just a great guy all around. But, what was it about chiropractic that, because I'm super thankful that you chose chiropractic over PT because you wouldn't be here.
Right.
But what was it about chiropractic that was like just very that was like, well, this is not for me, but this is for me?
Yeah, I think it was. The treatments themselves. I thought it was really cool to get the body working again. Focus on the joints, focus on the nervous system. It was a different approach than what I was used to.
Yeah,
I was very medical growing up, just like a lot of us were. But then I saw chiropractic, and I was like, this is a better way to do it,
Yeah. Well, it's if I don't have to do all that outside in stuff, and really all that outside in stuff really doesn't find the root cause.
Right.
But by adjusting the spine and giving people lifestyle, the body does heal.
Yeah.
So I remember whenever I was my story, just to kind of give some background as well.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you this is like the first season that you're listening to, I actually didn't like chiropractic. I was kind of anti-chiropractic. Grew up I would say that my family wasn't uber medical, but they just didn't know what they didn't know, right? So my family now, I'm very blessed to have a family that they love chiropractic. They love when we go on vacations together because they're like, hey, can I get adjusted? We're going to kind of watch what we're eating because, Brandon's in town and,
Right.
Hey, what do you do about this? I don't want to take meds for ear infections. So it's cool now, but it wasn't always like that. So I wrestled for the Ohio Bobcats and, had neck surgery in 2005. Woke up one morning, couldn't feel my hands. And I did kind of the pretty traditional PT, ice, heat, stem, stretching. And, I worked really hard. I was not the typical, just like you, not the typical overweight, just unhealthy person.
Right.
End up, we were getting ready to wrestle Central Michigan for the MAC title. And I remember waking up one morning and I couldn't feel my fingers. So literally, exercise physiology. So you were exercise physiology at OU. It's not like an easy,
Right.
It's not an easy road. It's not like, anyway. So it wasn't, there was a lot of organic chem. There was a lot of different things going on. I remember taking, a physics final and I'm sitting there and my head's kind of locked to the side. And every time I turned my head back to neutral, it would zing down my hand. I'd lose my pencil and it was bad. And so, as a Division I athlete, and your whole life is built upon, winning and, trying to get to the top and being All-American, I just was like, whatever you got to do to me. So they started taking needles and injecting them through the front of my neck. So they would take me to Lancaster at Fairfield Medical Center, and there was a really great guy there. And they don't even do this procedure anymore. So they would basically give me Valium, and they would basically inject me with a dye that would light up all the vertebral arteries in the carotid.
Right.
And then through a screen, he would stick a needle through the front of my neck to inject the nerve with cortisone.
Wow.
And so I did that for 3 weeks. And I just remember, happened to you go there at like 4:00, you have to drive back and then study for an organic chem or a physics final.
Yeah.
It was a pretty miserable time of my life. Ended up having neck surgery, and I felt good at the time, and then ended up having issues, headaches, and, addicted to Oxycontin. And it was just a rough time of my life because everything that I knew at that point that I was going to be, it was kind of taken away. And long story short, I found a chiropractor, and he goes, "Hey, you should come to my office and, let me start adjusting you." I'm like, "I don't know, man. Like, this is weird. Like, this is like just adjust me and like, I'm going to feel better." And he goes, "Yeah, it's pretty simple." And I'm like, "Well, that can't be right. Like, is there some type of a weird scientific, whatever concoction that you're going to give me?" And come to find out, obviously chiropractic is extremely scientific and researched, but, I got adjusted and, everything went away, and, went down to chiropractic school, Atlanta, where you went. And, it's funny kind of how we, very similar paths. I mean, you went to OU and got your degree in exercise physiology, went to Life. And so, here we are. And so I want to start out really just, we're going to go through a series of things, but I think it's really important for us to kind of set the foundation for the podcast. Like, we are like what I would consider a 5 essentials clinic. We do chiropractic, and I think you and I do chiropractic better than most, if not some of the best chiropractic in the area. At least that you could drive to, right, from Central Ohio. But, our office is a bit different. You've been to chiropractic clinics before. I mean, we go pretty deep.
Yeah.
I always like to say that we're not about going a mile wide, but a mile deep, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a big difference between going into a chiropractor, getting adjusted, and then, walking out and with your Chick-fil-A bag, right? I mean, there's things that are going to create neurological stressors. So in our office, we focus on the 5 essentials, like obviously our mindset. If you don't understand chiropractic and what subluxation is and where healing comes from, like, it's really difficult to get there. Right. So we're going to talk about that. The nervous system. The nervous system controls and coordinates everything in the body. And so for someone to say, "Well, I don't need chiropractic," I always question mark, well, then how are you taking care of your nervous system? Right. Exactly. I mean, it's almost like I don't brush my teeth. Well, I mean, chiropractic is like brushing and flossing your spine. That's kind of what it is, right? And then there's nutrition. We're going to talk about some inflammation and how certain diets can actually inflame and cause, increase in neurological issues, and how I joke we don't have meat sticks and Tootsie Rolls at the front desk, right? Right. If our kids get adjusted, there's organic lollipops and things like that. Functional movement, like you and I are exercise physiology background. We understand physiology in that way. It's important for the body to move. Sitting on the couch, watching Netflix, eating Cheetos, and getting adjusted, you probably aren't going to experience the same that you would if you were doing functional movement. And there's detoxification. So the 5th one is just detoxing. Stress. We're under stress all the time, from fluorescent lights to just, toxic water. There's just some certain things that we just can't get away from. And so doing regular detoxification practices are just super important. So in our clinic, we really try to give the patient a really healthy dose of all those things, right? We try to go, if you can do those 80%, like, you're going to be one of the healthier human beings on the planet, right? And we don't have to worry about being sick. But I want to start out by just saying, what is subluxation, right? Like, why should the average person be worried about it? I think as a chiropractor, we have to be very, very grounded in what we do. And I don't think that the world understands what even that means, So what is subluxation? And why is it important for the average person to know what that is?
So a subluxation, it's a combination of joint dysfunction and just interference to the nervous system at a specific level.
Okay.
So when a vertebral body moves, it pinches a nerve, causes interference, disrupts the flow of electrical impulses from the brain to wherever it's trying to go, and it's not going to work as well. It's bad because it's a silent killer. Nobody really knows that they have it, and you can go your entire life without knowing that you have it. You may not have pain with it, and so you may not know that you need an adjustment, and so it's something to get checked for, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think subluxation. When you think of subluxation, or a joint becoming stuck, causes pain, right? Obviously, when you look at the research, the research is pretty clear. If you just want to simply get out of pain, go to a chiropractor.
Right.
The research is astounding, and how much better people would be well off by not going to a primary care or even PT right off the bat, but to go to a chiropractor, restore joint motion, get the spine moving again, and that actually decreases those pain pathways, those nociceptive pathways. But like you actually mentioned, and these are in my notes, and we didn't really go over that a whole lot, but you mentioned silent killer. I think the reason why the world needs to understand that everybody needs to be checked for subluxation from the time that you're born until I don't care how old you are or how good of an athlete or how many abs you have, everybody needs to be checked for subluxation because it is a silent killer. Right. When I explain chiropractic to young kids especially, I always use the teeth because we understand the teeth, and everybody kind of gets freaked out if our teeth aren't looking great and we haven't brushed them in a while. Like you'd never go a week without, like 3 days without brushing your teeth, and it's like, oh my God, it's a horrible thing. People go their whole life without getting adjusted, and it's like, well, I feel fine, right? But the silent killer, right? So just to kind of break that down a little bit, like what do you mean by that? Like what do you mean by it's a silent killer?
So, silent meaning you're not going to know that you have it, and killer is it's going to disrupt everything that's going on in your body, whatever it's affecting, and it's going to reduce your quality of life. It's going to make it so your body's having a harder time doing what it needs to do.
Yeah. So like specifically, I think breaking this down on kind of layman's terms, right? So 100% is like where we want to be. Like nobody listening to this should ever say, well, hey, let's be 75% today. Right. Everyone's gonna be like, well, I would love to be 100%, right? So that's where our body was designed to be functioning and moving as close to 100%. 0% function is death. We don't want to go there. It's very interesting because when you look at physiology of a nerve fiber, the last 10% of a nerve fiber are pain fibers. Right. So what that means is that you actually have to eat through about 90% of that nerve fiber before you actually begin to feel pain. So silent killer is that you can actually have dysfunction and subluxation and faulty aberrant nerve function, right? But yet not actually even know that it's going on. Yeah. Right, which is actually really scary because that means that right now, if you're listening to the podcast or you haven't ever had your spine checked, like there are these things called subluxations that are in your spine that not only just lock the joint up, that decrease the neurology around that joint and increase pain, but if I lock down that joint and those nerves aren't freely flowing, there's also a visceral component to that, right? So you've got a motor component that says, well, wait a minute, hey, this can is hot, so when I touch it, I've got to come off of it. But there's also a visceral component that says, if I'm sitting at a desk all day, or I'm putting my 4-year-old on an iPad for 4 hours a day looking down, I'm actually creating subluxation in the neck, but your 4-year-old's not going to complain of neck pain. Right. And even if you do complain of neck pain, most parents are like, whatever. Like you don't know what you're talking about. You're 4. But the nerves in the neck are actually being affected by that, and it's actually decreasing the information that's going to the heart, the sinuses, the ears, the digestive system. So in our clinic, we see that quite a bit, right? A 6-year-old comes in the office and he's complaining about neck issues, like he's just stiff. Yeah. But I'm like, so tell me about the ear infections. Tell me about the fact that, they're having night terrors, or tell me about he's got tremors. And we don't look at those types of things as connected. Right. We only look at chiropractic as like, hey, I got in a car accident and my neck hurts, so I'll go to a chiropractor because my insurance is going to pay for it. When really, chiropractic is about making sure the spine is moving on a regular basis all the time, not just to feel better, but to make sure that we're functioning optimally at 100%. Right. And to not have an x-ray or any kind of examination of your spine, you wouldn't know that. Yeah. Would you agree? Yeah. No, people, they don't know what they don't know. And so, sometimes they don't know what their spine looks like and they don't have an idea what's going on. And would you agree? Like, what are some things that we can do to test for subluxation? So we could do quite a few things. I mean, we could do some joint play, just feel the spine. We could do some more tonal things, a little bit like what we do in the office. Like neurological checks and looking for neurological checks, and different things like leg lengths, that kind of stuff. Yeah. There's a bunch of different ways to test for subluxations. Just depends on, what technique you're willing to do and. Yeah. But I mean, x-rays, right? X-rays are a great way to like see a picture. Right. How many people do we know that come in and are like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I feel great. And then we take the x-ray.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know that was like that.
I didn't know that was like that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, but wait a minute, that makes sense. Because, it's funny because nobody ever has a problem. And so you kind of point it out. And I always say x-rays don't lie.
Right.
Because x-rays don't lie. Right. So, and you look at the x-rays, like, did you know that you've got like an issue there? Every once in a while, when I wake up, my hands are tingly, but I just kind of thought that was normal.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, my kid has an ear infection every once in a while, but I just kind of thought that was normal.
Right.
Hey, every once in a while, like my prostate will just kind of start and stop, and my gut gives me some issues, and I go to the bathroom like once every 2 or 3 days, but doesn't everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that we're getting into a world where we've gone away from like, hey, God's original design, which was that our body was programmed to work at optimum function all the time, and when you turn 50, all the wheels aren't supposed to fall off. And every kid doesn't have to have allergies and asthma and ear infections and sick all the time. Mm-hmm. But we don't know what we don't know because culture has kind of changed that perspective.
Right. It's become the new normal,
right?
Yeah.
Like, would you agree that like it's almost kind of like the new normal is if you're have allergies or you have a headache every once in a while, it's okay.
Right. Yeah. It's very prevalent in today's society.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I was like, talking just why is subluxation so important? And then I was just writing some notes here, like the medical dogma and the quick fix mentality has got people to believe that, hey, wait until you have a problem. And then when you have a problem, go get something done about it.
Right.
But the last person that you'll stop to would be the chiropractor.
Exactly.
Right. And then how many people come in the office? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm at my wit's end. And then boom, I want it to go away just like that. Right. So we talked about that chart of like 40% damage. So talk about time, like talk about like subluxation takes time to get there. Talk about the process of like healing and like that, like, because people, we're in the quick fix world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I can go to YouTube and I've actually seen that. It's like, hey, let me just go to YouTube and figure out how to crack my back.
Adjust myself.
Yeah, I mean, which is crazy, right? But
yeah, I mean, healing takes time, no matter what it is. The worse that it is, and the longer it's been there, the longer it's going to take to get better. So, just setting realistic expectations is always important when going in care, and changing up some habits that maybe caused the problem in the first place is important. You don't want to get adjusted and then go back to doing exactly what got you there in the first place.
Yeah. So changing that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why we do education. And it's like, hey, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So, hey, if you're sitting at a desk, well, let me ask you this. Do you think subluxation is ever going to go away?
Probably not, no. Never.
Right. I mean, I think that's a good conversation to have because people are listening thinking, well, hey, I go to a chiropractor and they should adjust me and then I'm good.
Right.
That's not the case. And I would even have that argument with chiropractors. And I think our profession probably needs to get on the same page that the best chiropractic adjustment in the world done in today's world, probably at least 2 to 3 days later, they're going to be subluxated when they come back in.
Right.
Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Why?
I mean, if they go back to their old ways and they're doing the same thing, sitting at their desk job, sitting on the couch watching TV, eating bad foods, it's just going to come right back. And if they're not doing corrective exercises as well, then we're clearing subluxations, and then it's just not going to solve the problem,
Give me an example of that, like clear subluxations, not doing corrective things, and then it goes back. Give me an example.
So, okay, you can, adjust, your lower lumbars if you have pain down there, and then you walk out of the office, sit in your car, drive an hour to go on vacation, and then, your subluxation came back. You're not going to strengthen that area and, correct the curve, then there's no point in adjusting it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say there'd probably be a point in adjusting it, but it's not going to hold there very long.
Right.
So we could be coming to the quick fix medical system at that point, right?
And
it's like an expensive Advil.
They'll just keep coming back, and they're wondering why it's not working long term.
Right. So in our clinic, we kind of call it that like mix, fix, and set, kind of concept where, you come in off the street and you've been sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week and 50, 60 hours a week, and then you go home and you sit on the couch and watch Netflix, and then I'm just like, well, we're going to skip core. We're just going to sit on the machine and text back and forth, and just not a whole lot of specificity when it comes to the rehabilitation side of things. But talk about that mix, fix, and set process. Like I know when you came into our clinic, like that was very that made sense to you.
Yeah.
Right, because with your spine, it's just like having some of those type of structural stuff too. Talk about that process and why that's important for subluxations to hold as long as possible, so that way patients don't have to continue to feel like my back goes out.
Right. Yeah. So the whole concept was new to me when I first started, but it made sense pretty quickly. It mix, fix, and set. It's like pouring concrete. You know, you want to mix the concrete first, which correct warm up exercises before you get adjusted. You know, you want to warm up the spine, warm up the muscles, makes it a lot easier to be adjusted. And then the fix is the adjustment. We'll remove the subluxation, remove the interference. And then the set is corrective exercises after the adjustment. And it helps the adjustment hold, strengthens the muscles, you know, makes the adjustment last longer. So that's a better model than just getting adjusted and then being on your way.
Yeah, it's good. Mix, fix, and set. It's kind of like braces, right? You know, we're like orthodontists.
Right.
You know, great example for our clinic versus maybe somebody down the road is like you go into a dentist to get your teeth cleaned. If you ask your dentist, hey, can you straighten my teeth? They're going to look at you like, no, I mean, that's not my thing.
Right.
Right. So, you know, we didn't go to chiropractic school to really learn how to correct a spine. You know, people think that, but you would go to chiropractic to learn how to adjust and like find it.
Yeah.
But you actually have to go extra to learn actually how to stabilize and correct a spine, kind of like an orthodontist.
Right.
You get braces on your teeth, you know, you get them corrected. How long you have braces on for?
3 years.
For as long as you need them.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, I've heard 6 months, I've heard 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it really, as long as it takes to correct it. And then what do you have to wear for the rest of your life after the
Retainer. Something to keep it there, you know?
Right. So, I mean, let's go into that. Like subluxation, I feel better. I've been getting adjusted. My whole life is better. And then you get to the end of a chiropractic care plan. And then you're like, okay, I'm done now.
Right. There's people that think, you know, I don't have to come anymore and I'm cured. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, like subluxation is going to come right back.
Right. And
It's like, hey, I went to the gym and I worked out for a month and I got ripped. I'm good now.
Yeah.
No, does that
Yeah.
make it? I don't know why it's with chiropractic. Maybe we can talk about like the dogma side at the end and some of the questions that we kind of get annoyed with. But to think that you can take a structure that's constantly under gravity and to fix it and to stabilize it and to get it to go out of pain, but then never to touch it ever again, and it's just going to stay exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
Would you agree that that's kind of an unrealistic expectation?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's the same thing with teeth and working out. You know, it's a constantly moving structure, and it always needs attention.
It's good. It's good. I want to talk about how chiropractic care influences the nervous system. I think when you think of a chiropractor, you think of bones, which, sure.
It's a fair point.
It's a fair point, right? So when we take an X-ray, when we do any kind of like neurological or postural evaluation, we're looking for shifts in the spine. However, I don't think a lot of people understand that when you adjust the spine, you're directly affecting the nervous system, okay, which is kind of like that power, right? Body, brain, spinal cord, nerves, the spine and the skull happen to protect that. So
Right.
I just want to kind of talk about like this concept of structure determining function, right? Like what is a normal structure for the spine?
So the normal spine should have 3 distinct curves, each of which should be 45 degrees, you know, cervical 45, thoracic, and lumbar. It should be, you know, nice and straight front to back, but have those curves from the side. And so that allows, you know, the forces of gravity to be dissipated very well. And it just allows the whole body to work as it should.
Yeah, those discs can stay hydrated with that arc.
Yep.
And then those nerves coming out of those discs can go to your fingers, and you know your brain can effectively tell it to come off the hot stove.
Right.
Or if is it Juan Soto's? What's his name? From the Mets. He's the hitter for the Mets. Or let's just say Aaron Judge. I don't care.
Right.
Yeah, right. So one of those guys. You're trying to hit a 104-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah.
Right? So do you think you have to have a nervous system to do that? Absolutely.
Be very helpful.
So this is why some of those guys have chiropractors.
Right.
Why? Because, well, why would somebody, Aaron Judge, that's jacked, right? He looks like he is a physical specimen. Why would he and anybody like Tiger Woods or anybody else need a chiropractor? Because chiropractic adjustments affect neurology and therefore affect reaction time and allow the brain to specifically tell whatever muscle you need to fire quickly. And if I'm going to try to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, I better have a nervous system that's functioning well.
Right.
And then if a 100-mile-an-hour fastball is coming at my head, I better know how to squat and get out of the way. right? So,
Yeah, I
you know,
agree.
structure determines function. And so the structure of the spine determines how the nervous system reacts and responds. But, you know, I think what's very interesting is that we have an ologist for every single organ in the body. And why medicine and chiropractic are very different is that we look at the body as a whole, right?
Right.
I kind of think of it like an orchestra, right? And then the brain is the conductor, and the brain is just basically just up there being like, okay, so you do this and you do that and you do this and you do that. And that makes total sense. And I don't think anybody listening would argue that that's kind of how the body works.
Right.
Your gallbladder does not work independently of something else. They're all connected. If you rip a gallbladder out or you rip a part of your digestive system out, there's going to be interference in that system. Medicine, however, we've got a pulmonologist, we've got a cardiologist, we've got a gastroenterologist, we've got an endocrinologist that all functions on one specific organ.
Right.
And so if that one specific organ is not working the way that it should, we give them medication to treat that organ. And we neglect the fact that the body is a unit and that maybe the reason why that organ is not working is because of something else in the body that's causing it.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's probably the biggest just disconnect between chiropractic and medicine?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes the organ not functioning can just be a symptom of something way bigger. And, you know, sometimes when they prescribe that medication, it can make other things, you know, not work. And it's an endless cycle, you know.
That's why one medication turns to 5. Right? I mean, like thyroid is a great example. It's kind of a hub for toxicity.
Right.
Right? And it's like, well, you know, I mean, I actually read an article from Harvard that they said like 65% of all thyroid medications prescribed are unnecessary.
Right, yeah.
Because the way that medicine tests for a thyroid, you know, you go into your doctor at 9 o'clock and you get a saliva test or you get a blood draw, and your thyroid is not good, so they put you on Synthroid forever. When really the most accurate way to test for a thyroid is for a period of times during the day when your hormones are up and down through saliva to test for T3, T4, you know, TSH, all these different things, and then get an accurate understanding. It's a very kind of weird model. But I just think the point I wanted to hit here was that chiropractic looks at the body as a whole. And if I'm gonna figure out a way to make every organ in the body work at optimum function, which organ am I going to pay attention to?
The brain.
The brain and the spinal cord, right? Because those are, and when you get adjusted, when your kid gets adjusted, and we adjust their upper cervical spine, and they're like, oh wow, like my neck feels better. Their brain, their body, their heart, their gallbladder, their digestive system, their ears, their sinuses, their ability to function and to be able to adapt to environmental allergens, all were working better.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? Anything you want to add on that?
No, I think it's great to see it in real time, you know, kids changing when they're getting adjusted and feeling better.
Well, I mean, we can talk about kids here later on, but I don't think there's any better population of individuals to focus on. And, you know, if you're a parent out there and you're watching this and you're under chiropractic care, but you've never gotten your child checked for vertebral subluxation, I would ask you why. A lot of people, it's like, well, you know, time, money. I would actually say I'd probably rather adjust their kids than them.
Right.
You know, we'll make less money, you know, because adults are more expensive to be adjusted. But when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
The most important population of individuals to adjust are kids. One, because they haven't been exposed to, you know, the amount of stress and things that adults have. Their spines are cartilage, so the ability to be able to change neurology and to set them up. I mean, imagine if your mom and dad took you to a chiropractor when you were 5.
I would be much healthier. I'd have a perfect spine.
Well, I mean, but I wouldn't have had neck surgery, and I wouldn't have had 10 knee surgeries. I mean, or 6 knee surgeries. I mean, I wouldn't have had the things that I had. I mean, thank God I had to go. You know, thank God I went through what I went through. But what I'm saying is that you can change the trajectory.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I just was having a conversation with a lady today, and she's like, you know, my daughter has an inner ear disease. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like my mother-in-law has an inner ear disease, and chiropractic has helped her hearing like 15-20% improvement through Meniere's disease, through chiropractic. And, you know, she can play pickleball and she can do these things. And I was like, so tell me about this thing. And she goes, well, you know, like she had massive ear infections when she was a kid, and she had tubes that kept falling out. And even now, as an adult, she has tubes.
Wow.
And I'm like, are you registering what I'm trying to say here? Like there's a problem up here.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's subluxated.
Yeah.
And that subluxation has never been taken away. And now she has this, and now she has that, and now she has this. And if that was done early, if at every birth a chiropractor came in and just gently just made sure everything was good here,
Mm-hmm.
imagine.
A lot less problems.
Which, I mean, then the world wouldn't be able to go around, and hospitals wouldn't make their money. So the 3 T's, right? So I want to talk about the 3 T's.
Right.
What causes subluxation? What affects the nervous system? What are the 3 T's?
Thoughts, traumas, and toxins.
Right. So how do thoughts affect? Tell me. And we can go back and forth on this. But why in the world we live in today, with all the stress and just the emotional craziness and watching the news and the last 4 years of all these different things, like how do thoughts cause subluxation?
Well, I mean, it's that stress and how your body handles it, and it changes the physiology, what's going on. And you always hear the saying, you carry stress at a certain location. And so those muscles, they pull on the spine, they change the biomechanics, and it changes a lot,
Well, example, right? Tiger gets loose in the room right now.
Right.
What's going to happen to everybody's blood pressure in this room?
It's going to go up.
What's going to happen to your sex drive?
It's going to go down.
It's going to go down. We're not talking about making love in that particular point in time. What's going to happen to your gut function and your ability to digest your food?
It's going down.
Right. What happens to your inflammatory kind of like epinephrine? Everything goes up. So what I'm saying here is that when fight or flight.
Right. Yep.
So when you're stressed, you're going fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Your head goes forward. You're ready to fight or you're ready to run. And so that's kind of where the world's at.
Yeah.
And so, emotional stress, chemical toxins. So we move into chemical toxins, like if you're eating a ton of sugar and bad fats and all these different things that can put you in fight or flight. It can cause systemic inflammation, gut health, and then traumas. Right?
Yeah.
I say there's 2 kinds of traumas. There's like a macro trauma. There's micro trauma.
Yeah.
So macro trauma meaning like I get hit by a car, or
right.
You're playing baseball and a ball hits you in the side of the head or something. And then there's micro trauma, which is basically just, hey, we're bending over adjusting patients all day.
Yeah, it's just the repetitive action of what you do on your daily basis.
Right. I was having a conversation with a little boy. They just started, care in the clinic the other day, and he goes, "I love to read. Could this have anything to do with why my neck looks like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, and I asked him, I said, "Well, tell me how you read." And he goes, "Well, excuse me, I'm in my bed and I plop my pillow back behind my head and I read like this."
Straight down.
Yeah, so he reads straight down like this. So basically, he's taken the curve out of his neck.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I read like that every night." And so, which is great. Like, I mean, he's a reader, which leaders are readers, which I think that's a good thing. But if I'm doing something even good on a regular basis, then I'm going to actually create micro trauma within that spine.
Right.
In video games, like, I mean, we talked about this, like you play video games. It's like, I could sit there and play video games for 3 hours and fight or flight. Like, I'm not going to play Call of Duty. Just be like, oh yeah, let's be nice and chill and lay back and good posture. It's like,
right.
It's like you're like in fight or flight. You're like, let's get away from this. Like, my kids are downstairs, like playing the old school James Bond 007.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like, I just, well, they're not old enough to play Call of Duty right now, but like, it's like we play James Bond and they're, shooting each other. They're boys, right? It's fun. But like my rule is that you've got to stand up when you play video games.
Okay.
So you're not allowed to sit down when you play video games.
Yeah.
And if I see you stand up when you're playing video game, you have 10 burpees. So if you play video game for an hour and you sit down for any other reason besides if you have to go to the bathroom or whatever, great.
Yeah.
Then you got 10 burpee penalty at the end. So if you sit down 3 times because I go out of the room because you think you're trying to pull a quick one on me, then you got 30 burpees at the end of your thing. So there's and my kids thinks workouts fun, like burpees to them are just
right.
breakfast.
Turns into a challenge.
No, it's like I told my son the other day. We were on vacation last summer. Hendrix, you know him. He's like all gas, no brake.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, Dad, can I have more screen time?" And I'm like, "If you want more screen time, like you got to do 100 burpees, and you got to do it in under 5 minutes." And he goes, "Okay." So he did 100 burpees in 4 minutes and 36 seconds.
Wow.
And he just like looked at me and smiled and was like, "Can I have my screen time now?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Gosh, that was not punishment. Like that was like too easy for him." So anyway, be creative, you know, in the things that you're doing repetitively. Because to be honest with you, and I think you and I can attest to this, that it's the repetitive micro traumas of the everyday that's way more destructive to the spine than a car accident would be, even though a car accident or falling off a dirt bike or whatever is big.
Right.
But we don't see that much anymore. We're seeing young kids 4 or 5 years old that have no curve in their spine. It's completely gone.
Yeah.
That have no curve in their low back. And to think that at 50 that person's going to have a great spine is not like
It's not realistic.
Spines don't go back.
Right.
You know, people think, well, it's like if I eat good and exercise and I read my Bible, my spine will go back. That's not going to happen. I mean, those are good things to do. I'm just saying that that's not going to make your spine go back to normal. So we got to do some things to get it there. Moving on. Let's talk about posture and just sedentary lifestyle. I mean, we were talking about just a little bit, but like chronic subluxation patterns. Like let's go through some research. You got some research on there?
I did not bring any for that.
Okay, let's talk about the research with like the nervous system and like focus and like immune function, stuff like that.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about, you know, lifestyle contributing to chronic subluxation patterns through video games and posture. And I think you guys understand that just anything that you're repetitively doing. So sitting, before we move on to that, sitting, go to a standing workstation most times.
Right.
Right. You know, move your desk to a standing position to where you can be working from here. I tell this to pastors all the time that are in the office, that are always, you know, hunched over their computer, you know, working on a message, and they're like, my back hurts. Well, we'll stand, right? Like, take the wobble cushion that you have in our clinic, put it there. Every 90 minutes, do some wobble to warm your low back up. Go do some air squats, and then come back in.
Right.
Actually, after 90 minutes, your brain basically has a really hard time making any like new neurological connections anyway. So if you just set an alarm on your watch, and every 90 minutes you did, you know, 5-10 air squats and did a little bit of wobble in your wobble cushion, like your brain's going to be way smarter anyway.
Yeah.
Any other like big things on that you would say?
No, I mean, it's just important to change posture every 10 minutes. So even if it's moving your legs or just getting up to walk around, you know, but for someone that works like at a desk job 8 hours a day, I'd recommend for 5 minutes every hour, just get up, walk around, maybe do some burpees or something. But
yes.
Yeah, it's just important to always get up and not sit the full 8 hours.
Yes. Be the example and do burpees at work. Yes. Love it. So let's talk about, I'm going to talk about just like, you know, we talked about some research a little bit. We'll kind of go into some like lifestyle stuff about how nutrition and fitness and inflammation and things like can kind of control and why do we talk about that in the office, right? Like, why is it important for a chiropractor to say, hey, that might not be a good idea for you to live on Chick-fil-A? And here's why. Before we do that, though, I think, you know, research-wise, what are some of the research that you found when it comes to just chiropractic and things that people may not think of, like focus, immune system function? I mean, if you were to never, ever, ever have neck pain ever again, if your back never hurt, but you were just like, wow, I just want to be a healthy, better functioning human being.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to, I want to make sure that this winter I have a bulletproof immune system. Like, I want to make sure that my body is set up to battle against any foreign invader there is. Like, what do you got?
So I found a study. It measured the brain waves through electroencephalography for someone getting adjusted over 4 weeks. And so, you know, they found they had better focus, a better attitude, and you know, they just were better overall. Even reportedly, they said, you know, I feel better, I can think clearer, and it's not as foggy, basically brain fog. You know, they also did some Fitbit studies, so they had them wear Fitbit through the whole like 8 hours of sleep, and so they found their light stage sleep was better after four weeks of getting adjusted.
So they're like, explain that. They're light what sleep?
They're light stage sleep.
Okay.
So not deep REM sleep, kind of like the in between phases. You know, maybe just falling asleep and then just now waking up. You know, the the non-deep sleep parts.
Which is the hardest for people to get to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because anybody can get into deep sleep. Like, well, they can go there. They may not sleep well, right? But they're asleep.
Right.
But to get there, like the lights.
Some people can't fall asleep.
Yeah.
And, they have trouble just, those first 15 minutes before you fall asleep.
Oh, wow.
And,
yeah. So individuals that were adjusted regular for 4 weeks were able to get to sleep quicker, and then able to experience that. Individuals that got adjusted, electroencephalography. Yeah, so it's ECG, right? So an ECG scan where they basically study the brain waves in the brain. They kind of hook you up to electrodes, and then they adjust you. They actually found that they had a better sense of overall feeling of focus and better well-being. It's funny. I find that a lot. Like if you were to just go into a chiropractic office, go into our office, and we were to take all the people, let's say 100 people, and we were to say, what are the 2 biggest things that you find that you love about chiropractic? I can guarantee you that probably 75% of them are going to be like, I sleep better.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
I sleep better. Now, and you'd be surprised how many people just don't sleep good. If all you did was go to a chiropractor because you wanted to sleep better, I could guarantee you that you would live longer. You know why? Because if you don't sleep good, you don't detox.
Right.
Bad sleep equals bad health. I mean, that's just the reality, right? Like if you can't sleep good, so if you're on the fence about chiropractic and you're like, well, I don't have any neck pain, but I sleep sucks, like go to a chiropractor.
Right.
Right. I mean, and then you just, and that was just chiropractic. Like that wasn't even nutrition and supplementation and exercise.
Right.
Like imagine if you have an individual that's 50 pounds overweight, they come in, they get adjusted, and they sleep better. I'm a better mom. I'm a better dad. I'm a better employee. I'm not grouchy. I'm going to have more focus. I can record things better.
Yeah.
But then you say, well, hey, how about this? How about you skip breakfast, right? And just wait till about 11 o'clock and fast a little bit. And then your first meal, let's get a smoothie or some good protein and some eggs. And let's skip the hash browns at McDonald's. Now we got a whole different level of stuff. Now we lose 25 pounds. And then it's like, hey, oh yes, now we're good. Now we're out of pain and we're getting adjusted and we sleep good. Let's start adding in exercise. I want you to get up and for 20, 30 minutes, I just want you to go for a walk. I want you to go just do 10 push-ups, 15 air squats and whatever. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like a total lifestyle transformation can happen just by getting better sleep. Because how many people get crappy sleep and they wake up and they're like, my whole day's crap.
Right. Their whole day's ruined. And it's just.
I got crappy sleep last night. Like my son is, Mac, he's kind of going through a little bit of a croupy kind of just coffee thing. And he's got the green gook and boogers coming out of his nose. And he's not breathing very well. So he's in his crib and I'll get in there and I'll adjust him and kind of prop him up a little bit. And we got the, oils flowing and he needed mom. Yeah. And he's in bed between us and he's kicking and he's up and I didn't get very good sleep last night. Now, I got adjusted and, got a good breakfast, got a workout in this morning. It's like it happens. But what I'm saying is that if you're regularly not getting good sleep, like that has a drastic impact on your productivity and just overall life. Yeah. Like I just, and we even live in a world where it's like, hey, let's get up at 4 a.m. and, be a jocko and then go to sleep at midnight. It's like when really we should be waking up when the sun comes up and going to sleep when the sun goes down. We're just off with that anyway. Right. But I guess I'm hitting that hard because you would never think, your primary care would never say, hey, go to chiropractor before you get the CPAP. Yeah. Straight to the CPAP. Right. Yeah. And insurance companies will pay for all that kind of stuff and whatever. But my gosh, like who wants to be a Darth Vader at night? Right? Like, could you imagine sleeping next to your wife who looks like Darth Vader? And it's like, hey, let's be intimate. Like that's difficult. And that's a real thing. Right. So I'm not trying to, poke fun at it, but the reality is that my goodness, like change your lifestyle, change the things that are going to impact subluxation. And let's put together a plan of attack that's actually going to fix the root cause of subluxation and then see these things begin to melt off. Right. Right. Anything else you want to add to that? No, I think I covered it really well. Good. Let's go into some lifestyle stuff, and then at the end we'll kind of talk about some fun things we wish we could debunk with some of the chiropractic myths. Why is movement important? Like why? I mean, exercise physiology is our background. The Ohio University exercise physiology program prepared me very well for chiropractic school. Yeah, and we spend more time and physiology and anatomy than any other profession in the world,
Mm-hmm.
like chiropractors do, because that's the only tool that we have in our tool belt. Like we just can't be like, okay, here, take this muscle relaxer.
Right.
Like we got to figure out how to physiologically make muscles relax.
Yeah.
Why is movement important?
Well, it's good for joints. That's what moves, the nutrients in and out. And it's just, it's always good to have your muscles working, muscles moving, and it keeps you healthy, keeps the mind healthy as well. It gives you something to think about.
Yeah. Specifically to the spine, right? So like, why is it good for an individual to move and strengthen muscles?
So it'll strengthen the muscles around the spine.
Yeah.
It holds the spine in place. And if you're getting adjusted and, doing both of those, then you'll be able to hold the spine in a better place where it should be.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that, especially like functional movement, right?
Right.
So like we're moving, different planes of the body, the brain. I was telling the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body. So just doing these kind of cross, crawl kind of functional types things, right, left sides, really fires the brain. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So this, whenever you move and you exercise and you stimulate those things, it actually creates neurogenesis, which is the formation or the growth of new nerve channels.
Mm-hmm.
An individual that is not physically active and is just like, a blubbery mess,
Yeah.
right? And then you go to a chiropractor and you're like, and then it's like, I'm not even doing any kind of strength or stabilization. Why does my back keep going out? Well, it's because there is nothing there to stabilize that unstable structure. And so specifically like, squatting and
Mm-hmm.
pushing and pulling and doing things in different ranges of motion. And I would say that I think that there's like, you're a fit guy. I know you like, bodybuilding and different things like that. And so you can spend some time on a machine and isolate those particular types of things because you're in pretty good shape. But
Right.
what would you recommend for that person who's like, hey, I've just never really worked out before, but I'm getting adjusted and I'm doing my home care. Like, what would you recommend that they start doing?
Yeah, I would start small. Depending on who they are and what their exercise expertise is, I would.
They have no exercise expertise whatsoever, but they just need something to get going.
Yeah, I mean, starting for a walk, just getting movement in, and just maybe some compound movements. You could do body weight stuff, chair squats, that kind of stuff, lunges, push-ups, just stuff to really get the body moving. You work the whole body, and they're easy to do. Anybody from any fitness level can do it. So it's just start small and then work up from there.
And the key word is just do it.
Right.
How many times it's like, I don't have any equipment to work out. I don't have the money. I'm like, dude, you got your bite, you got your push-ups, and
your body weight.
You got glutes, and like just go for a walk. Squat, lunge, and so I think the biggest thing for fitness that we see in our clinic. And I've seen this for 10, 15 years. Exercise is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time. Sometimes you got to get out of the house and it's a little bit cooler than what you'd like,
Yeah.
or it's a little bit warmer than you'd like. Like there's an excuse for everything.
It's time commitment, money commitment, all kinds of stuff.
I would even say money whenever you're doing it in your own basement and it's all body weight. It takes no money to do that.
Right.
It just takes your time, getting up. And so I would just say, and piggyback on that, right? Like doing something is better than nothing. Going for a 30-minute walk in the morning before breakfast, fasted with a cup of coffee, and I would even say, 30 minutes or 20 minutes, you walk fast for 1 or 2 minutes, walk slow for another minute, get your heart rate up, get your heart rate down, kind of, spike your metabolism a little bit. And as you get a foundation and you're used to getting up, then we can start to say, well, hey, let's do, some body weight exercises. Let's do, 5 rounds of 15 to 20 air squats onto a chair, 15 to 20 like incline push-ups on your bar, or on your coffee table.
Yeah.
And then let's get a band or something that you can tie to a door and just do some rows, or take some soup cans, or take a a paint can in your garage and hold onto the handle and row it like a kettlebell, something, right? And then you get a foundation, right? And then you start losing some weight. Your chiropractic's going really good. Your diet's in check. Like your adjustments are holding for a long period of time. And then maybe you can say, well, hey, I want to go to a gym and I want to expand.
Right.
right? But it's just doing it and it's being consistent.
Yeah. I think it's 21 days to form a habit, doing something. So form that habit, and then, you go from there, and it's a lot easier.
It takes 21 days to form a habit.
That's what I heard. 21
Wow.
days of doing something every day repetitively. 21 days.
Wow. I think that's good. So home care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we talk about doing home care with patients, it's like the first 21 days of your care are super important, because if not, then it's not a habit and it's not something you're going to do. So we just got to kind of burn that into, people and keeping people accountable, which, I think too, what we do a really good job of, and why I'm very proud of what we do at Revive and having you on our team, is that, part of being a chiropractor and a leader is that sometimes we have to tell people what they need, not what they want.
Right.
And a lot of people just want, instant results. Like, I just want my fat to melt off really quickly, and then I don't want to have to work out or do anything stable. But the reality is that if it takes 21 days to actually create a habit, then think of like you're watching this video, listen to this podcast. Take the next 21 days, take the weekend to just kind of decompress and let it all hang out, and then Monday think about, what is a habit that I want to change. Like, I'm gonna go to a standing workstation, and at every how many minutes? 10 minutes. I'm gonna just change direction.
Yep.
I'm gonna get up in the morning and I'm gonna go for a 20-minute walk. I'm gonna schedule a chiropractic evaluation to check my spine and get some consistency there. Pick something that you want to make a habit and do it for 21 days. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to just kind of talk about too is that the spine is kind of like a tensegrity model. You know what I'm talking about? Like a tensegrity model, meaning that it's not just a bunch of bones stacked up on top of each other, but you've got ligaments and you've got tendons, and it has to bend and it's got to twist. So, when you think of, like, it's not just like a Jenga set, like with a bunch of blocks that are just stacked on top. So, you got to think about, whenever you exercise, you're exercising in different planes of motion. You're front to back, you're side to side, you're rotating and you're twisting.
Yeah.
Because your spine is in like this tensegrity model. And really what the tensegrity model, it's a structure that relies on balance of tension and compression forces. So you've got compression and you've got tension from the side. And so when you're exercising, it can't just be on the machine back and forth. It's got to be, picking things off the ground and putting them on a shelf, and getting off the commode and turning and like, life is a tensegrity model. Yeah. Like, you're not just like these single planar movements. And so think about that when you're exercising. And in our clinic, we do a lot of challenges. We do workshops all the time, and stretching and mobility, because that education is important for you to get there. I want to talk about inflammation and how diet ties into like spinal dysfunction, because I feel like this is something that nobody understands. I don't think people understand that chiropractic can help with ear infections and digestive system problems, because we think about the spine and it not affecting that. So we've already handled that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how the food that you're putting in your body, in your engine, can actually affect your spine. And so one thing I just want to start out by saying is that I think that there are three things that we have to think about when it comes to eating for just overall health in general, but has a massive impact on the spine and neurology. Number one is blood sugar. So someone's like, what diet should I have? Well, a diet that's going to keep your blood sugar in check.
Right.
Without, what's the drug?
Ozempic?
Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh.
Yeah, don't do that.
Insulin.
No, Ozempic. That's what I'm saying. So, hey, because I know someone's going to listen to this and be like, oh, my blood sugar's under control. I'm on Ozempic. That's cheating. You're not allowed to do that. So, and that causes a ton of side effects, and it's kind of crazy. So don't do that. I'm talking about real food. I'm talking about lifestyle that's going to keep blood sugar at a minimum. Mm-hmm. I know people that actually have, blood sugar monitors, right? So real easy to go get a blood sugar monitor, get it in your tricep, and on your phone, it can literally check, hey, after this meal, here's what my blood sugar's. If that's what you need, do what you got to do. And some people look at it as a computer game, right? It could be cool. Yeah. But any diet that's going to spike your blood sugar is not a good diet. So there are supplements out there. There are things that you're just not even thinking of with additives that will spike it. So whole food, clean fruits and vegetables, mostly, nuts and seeds, quality meat, high protein, things like that. Yeah. And then gut health, right? So gut health would be something that I would tell you that If your gut is unhealthy, it's going to create massive amounts of systemic inflammation. And then those things lead to the third thing, which is what I would call AGEs, which are accelerated glycolytic end products. And this is what actually lays down scar tissue in your joints, your shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever you actually have massive amounts of inflammation, your body and blood sugar, your body actually produces these accelerated glycolytic end products, which are proteins. And these proteins actually attack the joints of your spine, your shoulders, your hips, and your ankles. This is why, Dr. Jared, that the 50-year-old comes into our clinic and they're like, I didn't know that I had my joints in my knee. Why are the joints in my knees just disintegrated? I didn't play sports. I didn't do this. They're not overweight, but they have no cartilage left.
Right.
A lot of it could be they haven't had motion through chiropractic because you're not getting good proprioception in that joint. But another part of it is because they live in an inflammatory, toxic diet, and so these AGEs just basically munch away at all the tissue in the joint, and then you become bone on bone. So, like anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, chronic inflammation, it's not something that people think can really affect, their spine and what goes on in the rest of their body, but, it damages healthy tissues. And so the spinal cord itself, the ligaments that surround it, tendons, all that stuff, it all gets damaged when you have a lot of inflammation. And so it also affects your body's ability to heal. And so highly inflamed person, they can't come back from an injury as well. And they try and get adjusted, and it's just, the adjustment's not holding. And so calming down that inflammation, I think, would be another step, another thing that we, recommend to patients, in addition to the corrective exercise and stuff.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and this is probably going to rock people's world when it comes to this. Like, is inflammation good? Is inflammation like a natural, like your body's responding, doing the right thing?
Yeah. Why? Well, it's trying to heal an injury. You know, it's a natural response in the body,
right? And
it's something that you need.
Yeah, talk about that. That people are like, well, that's bad. Like,
right?
Like I'm all swollen. Like my rheumatologist said that if I don't get in this injection, then like what is inflammation? Like inflammation is a warning sign that there's something really big going on in the body.
Yeah, so there's an injury there. Think of like, you sprain your ankles, there's going to be inflammation, there's going to be swelling, but that's necessary. Yeah. It's part of the healing process. It's, I think, the first step in the healing process. Yeah. Eventually that inflammation goes away, swelling goes away, and the joints, it's healed.
But what happens whenever you don't find the root cause of the inflammation?
It will stay there. If you're not fixing that, and it's just going to get worse.
Right. And will a cortisone shot fix inflammation?
No. It'll actually block the healing that you want. It'll hinder that. So,
it might make you feel better,
right?
But it's not going to actually fix the root cause as to why it is that those inflammatory proteins and byproducts are happening. So, this is why I pride ourselves in what we do here, in that, because some chiropractors would say, well, that's not what we do, and I'd say, well, it's what I do. Right. It's what Dr. Jared does. It's what any healthy human being would do. So my goodness, right? Like, why wouldn't we teach somebody about an anti-inflammatory diet? And, why wouldn't we do, shopping tours and classes to help people optimize function? Because I just had a mom come in today to the office, and she's been with us for a long time, and she's actually, a very healthy individual. She's got chickens, and, they get their own eggs and everything. And her son wants to put on weight at football. Yeah. And she goes, he wants to put on weight, but everybody keeps saying, just eat whatever you want. Just eat as much as you want and just gain weight. Yeah. And he's been a chiropractic patient for since he's been a kid. And he goes, I don't think that seems right, Dr. B. And I was like, you're going to be a chiropractor. But then number two, I was like, you're right. Like, what do you think is going to happen if you put all that toxic inflammatory food in your body? You're going to gain weight, but you're also going to get massive amounts of acne. Right. Right. And then you're going to get massively inflamed joints, and things are going to go bad. And so the point said is that I basically said, hey, here are some things that you can do to do that. And this is a family that actually grows their own vegetables, grows their own food, but they needed guidance. Right. And if they don't get that guidance from us, then they're probably going to go to a registered dietitian that's going to teach the food guide pyramid. Right. And what's on the bottom of the food guide pyramid? Brains. Inflammation. Right. Same thing. Inflammation. So we got to make sure that our bodies are healthy. We're gonna, Talk about gut a little bit. I think, gut's really important. I think 70 to 80% of individuals have gut issues they don't know they have. So when you think of a leaky gut or a toxic gut, you think of swelling, so systemic inflammation. You think of acne or skin issues, totally gut. When you think of anger, dopamine, serotonin, anxiety, depression, different things like that, constipation, all those types of things are a gut-related process. But what happens is that you've got a lining called your microbiome. And so you've got like these microvilli that kind of sit here and, and basically take all the food and everything you're putting into it, and it breaks it down, and it should just take it away.
Right.
If you have a toxic gut, then what happens is that you have these like gap junctions, which means that you have these holes in the lining of your gut. And this is happening, but there's still holes there. So those big, massive protein molecules like gluten and dairy and things that are not good, or hey, maybe you get like a foreign invader, like a bacterial virus. What it'll do is it'll go through that lining, and it'll go right into your bloodstream and cross the blood-brain barrier and go right into systemic inflammation. So when that happens and you have a bad gut and you keep eating all of these like processed milk and processed grains and it's not being digested, so it crosses the blood-brain barrier and creates systemic inflammation. This is why people that are just like I got rashes all over my body, or I'm swollen all the time. So we actually got to begin to heal the gut,
right?
At the gut level, and this is a big reason why we also add some supplementation into our protocols. So it's like, well, why do you do supplementation? Well, probiotics from Walmart, it's not really going to do a whole lot. So things like probiotics, omega-3 fatty acids for the inflammation, vitamin D3. Just very, very important for an individual to be on, especially in that aggressive kind of 8-week phase of correction.
Right. Speeds up healing.
It speeds up healing and allows the body to kind of be less inflamed, so that way your chiropractic process can speed up a little quicker. Your pain can go down, and it's better than ibuprofen or getting a cortisone shot.
Right.
There is no side effects of taking omega-3 fish oil. Right. I mean, and someone, that would argue and say, well, it's not FDA approved. Well, I mean, the FDA approved the Twinkie. Right. So let's be real here. Right. So omega-3 fatty acid fish oil from a wild caught fish source, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
it might be okay.
And I always tell people all the time that all my boys, they could take any of the supplements in our office and they could chew the entire jug of protein, and I would never have to call poison control. But if I went to like GNC, or if I went to like, Max Effort or Muscle Farm or something like that, like I would be a little bit, I would be a little bit cautious of like the dyes and some of the things that are in these supplements that are not good. Right. So just the quality that we give there. Anything you want to add on nutrition before we kind of go into the really fun part of our conversation?
We hit it real well.
All right. I think it's good. If you have more questions and you're listening to the podcast, just if you're listening on YouTube, you can comment below, and then the next time we do this, we can answer any questions that you have. If you have, hey, I would love to learn about this topic, you can reach out to us. We'd love to get your feedback. A few things here that I just want to end the show on. It's pretty fun. What are a couple myths about chiropractic that you wish people understood, and how if we could debunk those myths, like how would it change someone's life, right?
Yeah.
So I'll let you ask one to me, and I'll ask one to you. How about that?
You want me to share one?
Yeah, share one. Yeah, you share one.
So the biggest one I thought of was chiropractic care is expensive, and so that's very
okay.
It's very relative. We get that all the time. This is very expensive. I can't afford this.
Everybody says that.
Yeah,
and
okay,
so debunk me.
Well, I want you to understand. The amount of money you're spending to get out of pain and to correct your spine will save you money in the future. And so imagine if you didn't go through with care and you just went about your life. And so 40 years in the future, you have to get back surgery. Yeah. And so how much more expensive is that than a care plan,
Well, insurance will pay for a large part of it, but it's not going to pay for all of it.
Right.
So the back surgery, what you would pay out of pocket would cost about what it would cost for you to get chiropractic. But that's not the point.
Right.
You now have back surgery.
Right.
And you have a rod in your spine.
And so that's going to lead to further problems and make it more expensive than if you would just take care of the problem up front.
Absolutely. So sometimes I think when you think of this chiropractic expensive, it's not expensive. It's just out of pocket most of the time. And so people are used to just paying everything through their insurance. And we talk about this all the time, medical necessity. Do you know what the definition of medical necessity is according to Medicare?
I don't.
Any treatment plan that seeks to promote health, prevent disease, prolong, or enhance the quality of your life is deemed not medical necessity.
That's wild.
So basically what that means is that, hey, I'm going to get you out of pain. We just talked about this in the beginning of the show. Just because you're out of pain, is that going to restore function?
Nope.
No. So you're taking your entire life, you go to a chiropractor or you go somewhere who does the whole 12 visits insurance thing. You go there and you're out of pain. And then you stop going, and then the next 2 or 3 years, you're back in there, and you keep playing that game. You think you're saving money until all of a sudden your back goes out. You're crawling along the kitchen floor because you can't get up. And then you miss your kids' baseball games. And then you're the dad that can't play football with his son outside. You get the back surgery. And oh, yeah, by the way, hey, Dad, can we go play football on vacation? No, Dad's got the back brace. He can't move anymore.
Right.
This is where it becomes expensive. Not just expensive financially, but expensive because life is, you can't do the things
you miss out on experiences.
Hey, I mean, imagine if you're like, hey, Dad can't boat. Dad can't get up on the skis. Like, personally, as a dad, I'm like, dude, nothing is ever going to get in the way of me being the best version of myself so I can be everything to my sons. Right? I mean, wrestlers, right? That my sons are wrestlers. I was a wrestler. And like, you know, I have to take care of myself because if I don't take care of myself, then I can't, you know, do the things I need to do. Mm-hmm. And so chiropractic is not expensive. Value, right? I mean, you put your time and your money into what you value.
Right. People fix their cars as soon as they're, you know, broken, and people don't do the same for their health.
Oh no, my goodness. You know, and then I would even say that if we treated our bodies like we treated our cars, we'd be a heck of a lot better. You get an oil change, light goes off, ding. It's like, hey, go time to get the oil changed. Mm-hmm. Ding is a headache. Ding is back pain. Ding is neck pain. Ding is I can't feel my fingers. Ding is depression, anxiety. Oh, what do we do for that? We put a piece of duct tape over the oil light and we ignore it. And so that's expensive.
Right.
Okay. So for me, chiros are not real docs. I'm not into alternative medicine. So here's my thing. First off, what is the alternative? Like medicine, our traditional medical system is not a healthcare system. So like I'm not an alternative to anything. Like not me personally. I'm just saying that health, chiropractic, teaching somebody how to eat, live, sleep, exercise, and taking care of the one system in the body, that's not an alternative to anything.
Right.
Right? Like, so that's point number one. Like you're never going to get me to believe that giving somebody medication, giving somebody Ozempic because they're really overweight, because they don't want to work out and they don't want to change their lifestyle, and then giving them a drug that's going to cause cancer is healthcare. You're never going to be able to tell me that giving a little kid tubes before taking them to a chiropractor to get their ear infections to go away, which we like, it very, very common, is alternative. No, the alternative is you should go to emergency medicine when it's the last case scenario. Mm-hmm. The first line of defense should be somebody who understands health, that can do everything necessary to prevent that process from ever happening. And God forbid it does. Now we have a system for that. Chiropractors are not real doctors. I don't know the specific numbers, but this research has already been done. I think it's 4,280 hours that we spend in chiropractic school, and medical school is just under that.
Yeah.
So we actually spend more time in chiropractic school, pretty much the same amount of time, really, but more time on anatomy, physiology, and even diagnostics. Like we spend more time in diagnostics. They spend a lot of time in like pharmacology and different stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But to say that we don't have the education necessary, we actually have more education.
Right.
The reason why the length of time that a medical doctor would be in school is because they're in clinical rotation. Mm-hmm. They're in OBGYN, they're in pediatrics, and chiropractic, it's like we take care of everybody.
Yeah.
Like if you're pregnant, we adjust you. If you're old, we adjust you. If you're young, we adjust you. We may adjust you differently, right? But like we don't have to have a specialty rotation for that.
Yeah, you know, you kind of adapt what you're doing to the person and their needs, but you know, you don't have a specialty chiropractor for everybody that walks through the door.
Yeah. So chiropractors have more scientific education on physiology, anatomy, and really how the body works than medical profession. The average medical doctor spends less than 20 hours in medical school learning about nutrition. And most of that is on the food guide pyramid and like protein deficiencies. They have no idea. I mean, there's a handful out there that are learning. I've got a good friend of mine, Dr. Chris, who's a cardiologist, and he's actually creating a really cool program to prevent people from having to have heart attacks. I mean, but he's also understanding that there's a place for that. Mm-hmm. And you know, he's knowledgeable, but that he's an outlier, right? Like that is not like a traditional.
It's not how all of them think.
No,
you know?
I mean, like 90% of them, it's like I don't know. I mean, here we've got this, so go see the dietitian, and I mean, just go to a hospital and get a surgery and see what they feed you there. Like, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that that's backwards,
right?
Like, I just it's crazy. What's the next one?
Cervical adjustments cause strokes. That's a hot one. That's a bad one.
Debunk it.
Well, so there was a really old study that they did, you know, saying that cervical adjustments cause strokes, and you know that later came out as they falsified the data, and so it wasn't, it had no basis for truth, and so, you know, cervical adjustments happen millions of times all over the country every day, and how many strokes do you hear about?
Not very many.
Like maybe one, maybe two a year, and so. You know, the thing is, if somebody is having stroke-like symptoms, it's on the doctor to, you know, recognize that and be like, hey, maybe you don't need an adjustment and maybe we need to do something else. But, you know, cervical adjustments by themselves do not cause strokes.
Yep. I actually read a systematic review of the literature, which is basically they take all the literature out there on chiropractic causing strokes. A systematic review of the literature is basically a huge analysis that basically takes all the top research and says this. Bold line conclusion, there is no evidence to actually justify the fact that a chiropractic adjustment is the root cause of stroke. Now, like you just said, the individual walking in that's been smoking cigarettes for 30 years, who's overweight, and you don't realize that person is having a bad day, you know, maybe we need to do something a little bit lighter to their neck. Right. But at the same time, the chiropractic adjustment itself, putting a thrust into the neck is never going to tear a vertebral artery. Right. Like, I mean, I mean, crazy. Now, what's also interesting is that they actually found that canoeing, you're more likely to have a stroke canoeing than you are at a chiropractic office. Really? Right. So you're canoeing and you're kind of aggressively pulling yourself down for a long period of time. Yeah. The other profession, the other place that you're more likely to have a stroke at in a chiropractic office is at a hair salon. So bending over and getting your hair washed. That excessive extension of the neck, people have more strokes getting their hair washed than at a chiropractic office. Wow. But here's the big thing that I want to add to this. If you're not going to a chiropractor because you're afraid that your child or you are going to have a stroke, you better never give them a medication ever again. Right. Why? Because on almost every single medication is going to have a side effect, stroke. Right. I mean, watch the U.S. Open, watch any TV thing right now. My sons, I love it. Like, they're chiropractic kids. And they're like, Dad, what are all these drug commercials on here for? Like, people were flopping around like they're all happy, but then my oldest is like, the side effect is like diarrhea. Yeah. Like, I was like, buddy, because for every drug, there's a side effect. Mm-hmm. And I just want you to understand that if you're scared to have a stroke, then never smoke a cigarette ever again. You better start getting your butt exercising, stop eating Cane's Chicken and Chick-fil-A, and you better never take an ibuprofen for an excessive amount of time. Right. Because I'm just telling you right now, like, that let's stop making the excuse that chiropractors cause strokes. Like, we've got a lot of other things to worry about instead of that. Right. All right, last one. Kids should never be adjusted. So I would just tell you this right now, that my kids have been adjusted since the day they were born, and it's not because I'm a chiropractor and not because I'm like a granola crunchy, weird chiropractor guy that, grew up in and I did. I mean, we in chiropractic school, it's a different place. Yeah. I mean, there's classes, kids run around, moms are breastfeeding their kids. Like, it's just kind of a natural place to be, right? Mm-hmm. Which is great. But that is not the reason why I think that kids need to be adjusted is because I'm a chiropractor. It makes sense to me. Your kid is born, and they go to a pediatrician and they check vitals and they check all the things and they check all these different things. Like, wouldn't you want to go to a doctor and check the nervous system of an individual that's getting ready to start life?
Right.
Like, I mean, the one system that controls all the other systems. And I'll just tell you right now, I've got 4 boys like WWE in my house, and they fall and they flip and they beat the crap out of each other. And it's like they're subluxated a lot, right? And if their daddy, wasn't a chiropractor that can gently take those bones and free up that neurology, then they would have chronic subluxation patterns. They would have ear infections. They would have tight necks. They would grow up and have bad spines. So unhealthy kids, subluxated kids, turn into subluxated adults.
Right.
And subluxated adults turn into subluxated old people. And old people and old adults they can't live up to oftentimes what as God has called them to. And so it's a tragedy, to be honest with you, that parents would leave their kids at home and not get checked for subluxation. It's very easy. Sometimes we take x-rays, sometimes we don't. We've got myovision scans. It's very easy. I mean, adjusting a kid is like feeling for a bruising of an apple. We don't really actually do thrust on kids until about 6 years old because their facet joints and their joints are not like fully stable yet. And so there's all kinds of cool things that we see on a regular basis. And I'll just tell you right now, there's nothing that brings more joy to a family than to see a child with like ADHD, autism, all these learning disabilities, like, migraines, can't go to the bathroom, seizures, and to see a mom and a dad like cry, like just
get emotional for it.
but just the whole life changes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't think that was ever going to get better.
Right.
And then I'm spending all this money on all these different things, and all your kid's going to have this for the rest of your life. So I would just tell you that everyone deserves chiropractic, but if there's one population of people that need to have chiropractic, it's our kids today. They're on more medication than ever before. They've got more stress than ever before. They're sitting on an iPad more ever before. And so chiropractic is vital for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we did a good job of debunking some things.
Yeah.
We'll see if
hopefully changes some people's minds.
That's right. Anything else you wanna add?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man. I'm super excited for the future, and that you're going to be ahead of patient care, and it's awesome. So I'm excited to see what God does in the years to come. So thank you for listening to the podcast. Make sure you go to revivechiro.com if you're local in the area and you want to check out chiropractic. ReviveChiro.com. That's ReviveChiro.com. You can make a new patient appointment online. You can schedule a consult. Until next time, we pray you have a healthy, happy, blessed day. See you.